Hey everybody, it's Lorenzo from GamesRadar.com, and I'm here with a special guest, Joe Madureira, the creative director for Darksiders in the Darksiders series. Upcoming game is Darksiders II. And how you doing, Joe?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just have a couple of questions for you. Want to talk about the game a little bit?
Sure.
First one up. What inspired you to make a story based off of, characters like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, traditionally, bad guys that you turn into, somehow heroes? What inspired that?
Well, that was, we wanted to create a story that was sort of a dark action adventure, not horror, but just something that felt like, a sort of dark superhero team, if you will. And when we sort of settled on just visually the theme of angels and demons and stuff, in the Book of Revelation, the Four Horsemen are mentioned very, very briefly. But in people's minds, like you said, some people think they're good guys, some people think they're bad guys. There really isn't a lot of information. It's all interpretation over the years.
So far we've seen War's story in the first Darksiders. He's running around on Earth, accused by the Charred Council, and everybody's trying to kill him. Now we're jumping on to Death's story, and he's a completely different character. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between those two brothers and how their personalities, the difference in their personalities contributes to the way they play in the game?
Yeah, the funny thing is that they are so different, and it's also reflected in the gameplay. I mean, they play different, they fight differently, they even move around the world differently. But personality-wise, War was very much good character as far as honor and justice matter to him, and obeying the ancient laws. He's all about law, whereas Death is very irreverent of the laws that govern good and evil, angels and demons. Death sort of doesn't really care about balance and all that stuff. He just will get things done his own way. And actually in Darksiders 2 he doesn't even tell anyone where he's going or what he's doing. It's not sanctioned by the Charred Council or anything. He's sort of going around everyone, so that right away you get the feeling that Death is kind of more of a troublemaker, and he's a lot more sarcastic and kind of a jerk, so it's kind of fun watching him interact with the other characters.
Right, and War's just kind of the brute strength with his giant sword, and Death, he's got his dual sides.
Exactly. He's a little more roguish, Death is a little more, or War's a little more of a noble warrior.
The two horsemen we've seen so far, War and Death. There's two more. So traditionally they're famine and pestilence, and we hear whispers of the two horsemen we haven't seen, and you've named them Strife and Fury. So what inspired you to change their theme?
Well, we thought, from the very first time we talked about the idea of doing Darksiders, we thought, wouldn't it be so cool to play as all four horsemen? And I kind of imagined the character select screen where you're I'm gonna be Pestilence, I'm Famine. It just didn't really sound like a cool video game character name.
Yeah,
to
they'll
be
just
honest.
have flies flying around.
Yeah, it's not very Famine. Just actually, it does kind of sound cool, but not for the kind of game we wanted to make.
So, are you planning on continuing the Darksiders story by giving Strife and Fury their own games?
That would be awesome. I think we'll have to wait and see. We are very, very early into our next project at Vigil. It hasn't been announced. We're not saying what it is, but hopefully at some point we can talk about it, and you may or may not get that question answered. I don't know, but it would be really cool.
Are there any other strong female characters that will show up in the series?
There are, for some strange reason, and this was not on purpose, a lot of our villains are female, and so there is a very powerful female character that is introduced in Darksiders II, Lilith. I'm just gonna tell you right now who it is, and you know, she was sort of like a presence in the first game. You heard her voice, but you didn't really know who it is, and in Darksiders 2 you get to know a lot more about her, and she's a very powerful, very cool character.
In the first Darksiders wars, pretty much taking care of business, killing demons, and you know, just killing everybody on Earth, right? And Death, he starts off on Earth and then he ends up going to other planets or other worlds. So what inspired the creation of those other worlds, and how did you go about creating those other worlds?
That was really one of the most exciting things for me about Darksiders 2, you know, other than doing a new character, was that we did spend so much time on Earth in the first game. And we had originally, in our crazy version of the game that was in our head, had a lot of the other worlds in the first game, and then we had to scale it down, just, you know, to make a game that we could actually finish. And so, you know, a lot of it takes place on Earth, and you have certain limitations with, you know, because we live here, so you know what it's supposed to look like. You know, there's certain buildings you expect to see, you know what streets look like, and intersections, and cars, and street poles, and all that stuff. But it doesn't always create the most epic backdrop for this journey. So, you know, we would like put waterfalls in the scene and all this stuff. We tried to dress up Earth and make it look like a fantasy world as best as we could. But in the sequel, you know, we're not on Earth for most of the game, so we just went crazy, and we were able to do a lot of that fun stuff. Like, you have giant ships being pulled by serpents across the sky full of like dead kings, and like, you know, like there's like a whole undead sort of land, the underworld, and within that there's we have a lot more quest characters now, so you interact with so many more characters, and they have their like parts of the world where they live. We see the Makers, which is Ulthane's people. From the first game, you get to kind of see like where he came from and what they're all about. You learn more about the demons and hell, and there's just like way more variety this time around.
One more question for you.
Sure.
What does Death look like behind his mask?
Wow, one more vague answer coming right up.
Is there anything behind him?
You know, one of the reasons he wears the mask is because we thought everyone sort of like has this like he is such a mysterious figure, and everyone has kind of their own idea of like what he would look like. You know, usually it's like a Grim Reaper or whatever, and I think that when we did toy around with like showing his face, like it just kind of like ruined the mystery, you know? It's almost like, God, I don't want to see what Darth Vader looks like under the mask. Why'd you have to show me? Now I always see that guy. So, you know, we purposely took great pains to like never reveal that.
Thanks a lot, Joe, and for more information on Darksiders 2, be sure to check out a review, and for the game in stores August 14th for Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. And be sure to check out all of our coverage on GamesRadar.com.